Minnesota, one of the more interesting teams in the NBA to me this season because the West is loaded as it is. We're seeing that happen already. The Thunder are 3-0 without Jalen Williams. Spurs are 3-0. Victor Wembanyama looks like he's taking a leap. The Warriors, Grizzlies, Clippers all look better than they were last season. Lakers, Nuggets, Rockets 0-2, but all those teams are going to be around. In Minnesota, 2 years ago, they were a 56-win team, 3 seed. Last year, a 49-win team, 6 seed. They end up in the Western Conference Finals both years, and they're 2-1 this year. But the West is just better than it has been the last 2 years, even better than it was. And now the Wolves have this weird point guard situation where Donte DiVincenzo gets named the starter right before the season. Mike Conley looks washed. Bones Hyland is looking the best of the three somehow, and Rob Dillingham is out right now. So it's a very strange team in this loaded, crowded Western Conference. What are your early impressions of Minnesota? Give me some pros and give me some cons from what you've seen so far.
Yeah, well, let's focus on the point guard position first, because I think that's the newest development, the most surprising development of the season thus far. I mean, when I saw the tweet come through that Donte DiVincenzo was going to start on opening night, like, I was surprised. And asking around to some people, I was like, hey, this hasn't been the plan all along, right? And no, it wasn't. They decided, like, in the days right before the season started, to ultimately make the change to Donte DiVincenzo in the starting lineup, which worked actually really well last season when they went to it for like 2 weeks before DiVincenzo got hurt. I think there's some advantages to playing that way, but it's also, Donte isn't a true point guard, and it takes him out of kind of being the elite movement shooter that he can be some, and it just ends up putting a lot more of the onus on Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle to be the point guards, which can work, but it's like Houston and like some of these other teams that are playing without a traditional point guard. What's the opportunity cost of that? And I think, that's going to be tested here this season.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to be. And ultimately, I was on the side of, well, hopefully Rob Dillingham is the guy that's able to take the reins.
You were no way,
become the guy. And now he's got a nose injury. He's out, and it seems like Finch had put Hyland ahead of him on the depth chart anyway. And the fact is, like, Conley was the guy a couple of years ago and did a great job in that role, but looks like he should have retired right now. To me, it looks like a massive hole in the team. But do you think this is partially by design to have just multiple points of creation, that this is actually what they desire? Like, is that a possibility here, that this is what the Wolves want to have their roster look like, with different guys being sources of creation, Ant included?
Well, I think they would like to have Mike Conley from 2 years ago to have a traditional point guard, like smooth operator, But to your point, they look at last night, like they want to play through Julius as like a hub of the offense. They want to do that a lot, even with Ant. So and then Ant is a super high usage. You're going to use him in DHO, high ball screen action, isolation all the time, that's just a lot of your offense. Even if Rob Dillingham was awesome right now, even if Mike Conley went back in the time machine, they would still play through Ant and Julius a lot. So I think ultimately, they do want to get to this. I do think it's important when they face ball pressure, when Julius doesn't have a matchup that he can cook, when Ant is facing like 2 on the ball all the time, having somebody else to go to initiate offense. But to your point, this is the plan. They do want to play through Ant and Julius as kind of the 2 main hubs of the offense. I'm not sure they're like totally ready to handle that for 48 minutes every single night without another point guard option available.
You seem to have some skepticism about this actually working in the ways that they might imagine it working.
Yeah, I do. I mean, we don't know how and where Ant has made a leap yet. I mean, the opening night against Portland, I thought he was incredible, and I did see some higher processing speeds. I did see him handle Portland's ball pressure. But it's the ultimate question at this time every year is like, where is Ant different than he was the previous season? And we've seen all these basketball developments. Obviously, last season he adds the volume 3-point shot at a 40% clip, implements that right away. But it's to me, it's always, when is that mental leap going to happen? When is he become an elite manipulator of offense? Not just like, okay, they put 2 on the ball on me, I'm getting off of it. I want to suck the 2 defenders into the right side here so Julius is fully wide open on the pop. And we've only seen 2 games of Ant. So I don't know. I don't know where Ant is in this process. The Portland game really screams like, hey, he might have found something else here, get into the mid-range effectively in that sort of way. The Lakers were obsessed with just kind of loading up the gap help on him, as they always do. I just don't know where Ant is on that like gradient towards becoming like a heliocentric hub of, ball handling, like a Luka or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like with the Anthony Edwards, so much of the conversation, including when we did our first pod last year, is about his offensive evolution. Last year, it's adding the 3-pointer. This year, entering training camp, it's all about, well, he's studying Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and these guys as a back-to-the-basket post-tub. And, through the 3 games so far, granted he barely played in the third one, he has been awesome. He has been great. It's just been interesting to see a lot of the mid-range has come on pull-ups, turnarounds. His shot distribution looks more like it did 2 years ago than it did last year. What is your assessment so far of the offensive evolution of Anthony Edwards, and what are the things that you still feel like you still need to see him prove over the course of this year?
Well, I was scared when I heard about the emphasis he was putting on the mid-range in the offseason. And not because I didn't think that needs to be something he adds to his game. He does need to add that to his game, especially late in games. And this playing on the screen right now, the buzzer beater he hit in Portland, to be able to create space and get to his own shot from the mid-range clean. He did that, but I was concerned about it, that he was going to totally shift his whole shot diet and become a heavy mid-range type of player, because that's kind of what he was saying to us that he was doing. And if you look at previous to this season, the first 5 years of his career, he shot 36% from mid-range and 37% from 3. I mean, he has thus far in his career been one of the least efficient mid-range shooters in the entire NBA. So you hear more of that and you go, are we sure this is a good idea? But the mix in which he did it, to your point, it wasn't crazy. It was the exact same like split as it was 2 seasons ago.
Just more efficiency.
I think that's okay. Well, more efficiency. Yes, he needs more efficiency from 2-point range at the rim too. So I think it's just about taking the right ones. And I wouldn't have bet on him taking the right ones a couple weeks ago, but he thus far has been largely taking the right ones, and it opens up a lot for this team if he can be an efficient mid-range creator as well.
Is there any part of you that just wants the Wolves just to rip the Band-Aid off and let Ant be that, ball dominant lead guard of the team, and none of this like, oh, it's DiVincenzo is the starting point guard? Do you like, because with Ant, the progression of his game, he did add the 3. He became an elite 3-point shooter last year, high volume shooter. This year, let's just assume the mid-range improvement is for real and that this is a real thing that's going to continue over the course of the season. Let's assume that's real. Is there any reason not just to say, okay, Ant, you're going to be the guy running 35 pick and rolls a game. You are the lead facilitator for this team. As you go, we go. Is there any reason you think for them to do this over the course of the year? Because I'm not seeing the answers with DiVincenzo, Conley, and clearly Finch doesn't have a level of belief in Dillingham at this point. So doesn't it have to be Ant for the Wolves to get to the finals this season? Doesn't this have to be something they develop over the course of the year, Dane?
I just wonder if Finch is afraid if he gives Ant the keys, that'll never get him back. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
And I don't know, maybe that's still worth it given the poor alternative options. I mean, I think Donte DiVincenzo should play like Malik Beasley. And Malik Beasley was on the Wolves like 4 or 5 years ago and was just a movement shooter in that sort of way. I think you get the most out of Donte DiVincenzo if you're using him that way. So yeah, I think the answer is yes, give him the keys. And, put some guardrails on there. There's Julius Randle that you're going to want to play through a lot too. It's never if as long as Julius is healthy and playing next to him, it's never going to be like the full Luka experience of 35, 40 pick and rolls because they're going to play through Julius a lot too. But yeah, I think at this point, Ant initiating is a better move than DiVincenzo initiating or Conley initiating or Bones or Rob. Like I think given the options, more Ant is probably the best move, but I don't think it's Finch's preferred path of growth with him. I mean, I've been asking him about this for years, like because Finch coached Harden in Houston. Of like, hey, where is this? And Finch has always told me we'd like to keep him more as a 2. We think having him, the second side against the shifted defense, that's Ant's superpower, right? Where he can just rip past and go by one person rather than patting the ball at the top of the key, Luka, Harden style. I don't think Ant is as good at that as some of those other guys. But again, given the alternatives, it might just have to be. They might just have to give it to him this year.
It's going to be interesting to see how this develops because I think with Conley there before playing like, a still solid basketball at his advanced age before he was 38 years old at this point, there's still good reason to have Conley as, your quote unquote point guard. But at this point, I do wonder, is there a move to be made or is it just the move to something within, whether it's Dillingham becoming something or whether it's Anthony Edwards getting that opportunity. But ultimately, Ant is so good and so great at so many of those other things that it does make sense to have him in that role as well, especially he also can be a very good defender. And I think he should be better than he has been so far this season. And ultimately the Wolves as a whole, they're 27th in defensive rating so far this year. And Gobert, when he's on the floor, the Wolves have a 110 defensive rating. When he's off the floor, they have a 133.7 defensive rating. Super tiny sample sizes, of course, at this point of the year. But, what can be done, Dane, about these non-Gobert minutes? Because defense was so important to Minnesota's identity over the last 2 years getting to the West Finals. What's changed now? What can be done to improve that?
Yeah, well, I would like to say that I think it's fair to state those numbers despite it being a small sample size because that's what the splits were last season in the Rudy minutes and the Rudy off minutes is they did not figure out how to defend with the Reid and Randle and Julius Randle front court, not to the degree that they did with Cat 2 years ago. I mean, I've really grown a greater appreciation for what Cat brought defensively to that team. You look at that year when the Wolves were the number 1 defense, 23-24, they had like the equivalent of the number 1 defense with Rudy on the floor and the equivalent of the number 2 defense in the league with Rudy off the floor and Cat and Kyle Anderson in the front court there. Last season, it split to first with Rudy on the floor and the equivalent of 20th when Naz or Julius were at the 5 there. I think it's a huge issue because it does, when you're playing that bad of defense, whenever Rudy is off the floor, it's really hard to say like defense is our identity, ball containment and rim protection, and the things that came to define that really elite Wolves defense of 2 seasons ago. When you're toggling between being a Rudy Gobert defense and then just mediocre to below average, I think you get a little confused about who you are. That team 2 seasons ago, when they led the league in defensive rating, was not confused about who they were. So they played every defensive possession the same the whole time. I mean, it feels a little distant now, but it's what it felt like Oklahoma City, what they do, what Portland, I think, is doing thus far this season. And they're starting to feel like a far cry from that. And I just wonder from an identity standpoint, if you start trickling towards mediocrity, what does this become?
Why is that? What is the difference? What has changed? Why does that identity feel lost that you're describing?
I think it's the interior presence, not just Rudy. Like when Cat was at the 4 and you came into the lane and Jaden was at the 3, there was not space to breathe in there. And Kyle Anderson was actually really helpful there too. And he's, 6'9" with like a 7'3" wingspan as well. I think Julius Randle has actually surprised me as an isolation defender and has been like better and in post situations than I expected in the year that he's been here. But he is not a strong low man presence. He does not have good instincts in rotating over to the rim effectively and kind of taking up that space or being a backup, to Rudy when he's in rotation there, even if Rudy is on the floor. So this team just doesn't have as good of defensive personnel as it did before. We haven't even mentioned Nickeil Alexander-Walker being gone as well. Like, they don't have the same quality of defenders in this group. So I don't know. Other guys need to step up, or they just need to shift a little bit more, maybe towards being more of an offensive team. Because I don't know. It's been really rough when Rudy hasn't been on the floor here through the first 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, when Naz Reid is making $13 million, it's a lot different than when he's making 25 at a 5-year, $125 million deal. I think the assessment and the things he brings and doesn't bring to the floor under a different spotlight at this point, with what he is at this point. I still love Naz Reid. Don't get me wrong.
He's a 4, dude. He's a 4. He's a 4, yes. And he's being forced to play the 5. He's out more than a 3 to me than he is a 5 at times. So he's being played out of position there. I don't think it's like Naz can't play good defense. You look at the best defensive rating on the team, 2-man pairing for the last 2 seasons, it's Rudy and Naz. Like, when Naz is at the 4 playing next to Rudy, it works. When you put Naz next to Julius Randle or somebody else, it doesn't work. So I don't know. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I think that's completely spot on. And ultimately, it's the identity shift that might have to happen. If Minnesota is not going to have an elite defense anymore, they are going to have to be an offensive-oriented team, which gets back to our prior topic about who's playing point guard, what is Anthony Edwards' role, Julius Randle as an offensive hub, and also things like, 3-point volume. This year, they're 20th in the NBA in 3-point attempts per game. Do they need to increase the volume of that? Where does that come from with a bunch of iffy or average shooters on the team as well? What my concern is I love some of the key guys on this team. I'm a Gobert guy. I love Ants. I love some of their role guys. I love Jalen Clark. I love Naz Reid a long time. I love what this team can be. I love what they've been. I just worry, if I'm a Wolves fan, that this team has been surpassed by multiple teams in the Western Conference, and that those 2 years in the Western Conference, that this isn't going to be a step up year, and instead this could be a step back year. And that's my concern, has been on paper entering the season, and it's also still my concern through 3 games. Super or small sample size at this point, but do you think I'm in the right to feel that way, Dane? As I kind of watch this team through the lens of, like, if I'm a Wolves fan feeling that way.
Yeah, no, let me just make the counter case. I do think that's totally fair. And it's given the rest of the West and Wemby and some of those other teams, right? Like, it just is. It's denser.
Undeniable. There are good teams that miss the playoffs. Like, Grizzlies fans got pissed off at me last week for saying the Grizzlies are going to miss the playoffs. Well, maybe they won't, but they could, because a good team is going to miss the playoffs. I don't know who it's going to be, but someone good will.
I think the counter argument is Julius Randle's about to have like an all-star season. And they are so much more comfortable, man, playing with Julius right now, playing Julius Randle ball, and he's cooking. Like, that piece. Sunday, great, dude. Like, and the thing is they've just got it figured out now of, like, and I was talking with Julius in the locker room about this after the game, about kind of making the reads based on how they're guarding him. They just put Pascal Siakam on him one-on-one to start the game last night. They weren't bringing help. They weren't bringing doubles. And Julius knows time to cook. A one-on-one advantage situation, it is so important that he does cook that. And he did. He had like 15 points in the first quarter guarded by Pascal. Then once they start bringing in a little bit of help, or they start bringing like a full-on double off the bounce when he's in the post, Julius knows how to spray it off of that, right? He's become a really good playmaker. He's a really important playmaker to this team. And he talked about it like the progressions of a quarterback, of like, if this, then that, if not this, then that. I think Julius has that piece totally figured out. And I think his teammates are coming around. I was just watching last night of like kind of repositioning on the perimeter. Okay, they're now seeing here comes the gap help here, or they're rotating over a double team from the bottom. DiVincenzo knows where to rotate. Naz Reid knows where to rotate there. If Julius Randle can kill his initial matchup in a one-on-one situation and they have to start bringing help or a double team, Julius Randle will play make, and the Wolves will generate consistent good looks off of that for open threes. And that's how your 3-point volume goes back up. DiVincenzo shoots 40% on volume. Ant shoots 40% on volume, playing off of Julius Randle there. If you get that from Julius, I think they will. I think they know that now. I think this offense levels up, especially if we then add in the piece of Ant, which we were talking about earlier, where we're buying the mid-range efficiency and just some overall better operation as an offensive player. I think this team could be really good offensively as Julius Randle, plays 82 games of really good. It was only the last 20 of the season where they figured this out with Julius last year.
It's a great point. I mean, I think with Julius Randle, undeniably, if it is that type of, we've seen him be an all-NBA player before. If he is playing at that level, it does change the complexion of what the offense could be and what this overall team could be. And ultimately, I really hope Anthony Edwards, is back from the hamstring tonight against Denver, because this whole week, Denver on Monday, the Lakers on Wednesday. Granted, Luka is likely going to be out for that game as well. And then look ahead to Saturday against the red-hot Charlotte Hornets with LaMelo Ball playing at an all-star level at this point. It's a good week for kind of a barometer test for Minnesota to see where they're at. Just hopefully Anthony Edwards is healthy for that. And so far they've faced the Pacers, the Lakers, and the Blazers. So I want to go through some of your observations from those teams, starting with Indiana. Indiana decimated by injuries so far this season. Andrew Nembhard out with a shoulder injury as well. They're 0-3. If I'm a Pacers fan, I'm feeling great, because I'm like, okay, we are losing games and we're going to have a lottery pick. This bye year is going to come with a reward at the end of this loaded draft class. And we still look like one of the best coached teams in basketball, with these random guys, Ray J. Dennis, coming off the bench, playing minutes for us. I'd be feeling good if I'm a Pacers fan at this point.
Injury report tweets killing me. they're so crazy, banged up. I feel bad for them. I don't like. You think Carlisle is going to put it into neutral? I don't think so.
No,
I think he's going to still coach this team. So I don't know if they're going to get that reward at the end of the day. Or somebody's going to need to